whole thing went on hold until, well, pretty much until now. Just haven't had a chance to get back there. I don't have any room in my house today. Actually, so that's basically why I haven't built a new web server and why we're not doing this as well yet. That's me giving that feedback. No, it wasn't me. Still hear how many people want to mute. So let's go from someone else.
Your microphone is still not very high and gargly.
Yeah, I mentioned that the live stream is running right now, so we're good on that. So Jabber and Arnie are in the same canyon.
What's that?
You're in the same canyon as Arnie.
Yeah, oh. Yeah, I guess the same image, just flipped around. I'm not really sure about that. It looks flipped around to me, but that it could be just that I'm seeing a mirror image of myself in Jitsi, but normally I'm seeing something else.
You're breaking up, Jabber.
Am I? Videos on YouTube to verify. And you check the website.
By the way, how's my sound quality coming through?
Pretty decent.
Yeah, okay, last time it was, I was told it was kind of messed up, but good. I found that in Fedora 34, the volume seems to be lower. Not the volume in the mic, but the earphone volumes were reduced, but not too serious. Bill's just gone to Rome.
Hey, now I have YouTube on my phone, so I can check the audio, see what it actually sounds like on YouTube.
Okay, yeah, your audio itself's not coming across all that good.
Oh, it sounds pretty clear right now.
Yeah, it's a little better.
Maybe I would just maybe it would just sound low because I wasn't talking very loud earlier.
Yeah, that's possible.
So from what I'm seeing in chat, people aren't recommending the Let's Encrypt anymore. I remember there's a lot of talk about using it last year. And, now I guess. So what's the story there with that?
If you want to pay for one, you can go ahead and pay for one, but
I don't think we really have the budget for that. Well, Jerry's treasurer, he could either confirm or deny that.
you just don't want to be using those self-signed certs because that trains people to click ignore.
So Bill RW says that Let's Encrypt is not self-signed.
Right, that's me.
Oh.
Let's Encrypt is a traceable certificate.
Oh, I just posted the URL on the Blue website for the YouTube link. I need to reopen the tab for that to look it up again. Here it is. Okay, I pasted into the chat window. Oh, right, that's what I forgot to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I put it in the, when I set it up, usually a week ahead of time, I usually put it in the file on Driftwood.
Yeah, it wasn't there earlier. I had to get out of your email and put it in a few minutes ago.
So the pre-meeting is all pretty quiet today.
What was that?
The pre-meeting is pretty quiet today.
I guess there aren't too many questions.
Anybody got news from Google I/O at all?
No. My son-in-law went to got online to CentOS DOS the other day and got some better information on CentOS, but we wanted to see if we get the guy who spoke there to talk on it, but he couldn't get hold of him. and he wasn't prepared enough to come on tonight.
Well, you don't currently have anyone booked for anything beyond tonight's meeting, so maybe they can talk next month. Hey,
I'll
Trey,
see if I can get that guy to talk next month, or get someone else. Yeah, he said it was much more rational explanation than he's heard before. Yes, the guy is a kernel developer. I also sent some email to Jonathan McDowell to see if we can get him back for a future meeting. I haven't heard back from him, but usually it's usually a day or so before I hear back from him.
yeah, I chimed in on your email afterwards, saying I'd also like to hear another meeting from him. But I still haven't heard anything back either.
Well, Jonathan was a little bit busy last week with space junk.
Yes. I caught him on both CNN and Deutsche Welle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of his expertise.
And they're apparently at least his portion of Smithsonian is moving.
Where are they moving to? I hadn't heard that.
I'm not sure if I don't know, but packing office is such a joy.
Yeah, I know that the people that were following the operations center and everything else moved to Burlington
Yeah.
a couple of years ago. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's what really my
They
son-in-law
were the
was
ones that
involved with.
were upstairs from me
Yep.
20 years ago.
Yeah, they were in the same thing for many years.
Yes. That's an operation you don't want to move very often.
No, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a coordinated move, but and
Well-
they can't really, they also have to. There's some times where they can't do any work. They have to track the satellite
Well, yeah.
at certain periods of time, so that stops them from doing anything that could possibly be disruptive.
They'll probably have to test the new or had to test the new operations center before unplugging the old one.
Oh, absolutely.
Was that completed?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. The odd thing was that the building that they were renting a floor and we were renting 2 floors in
Yeah.
was actually owned by Draper,
It was Draper. Yeah.
and Draper had most of their people in the other building, which Draper was renting.
Yep.
A little weird.
Yeah, but they had some long-term tenants they couldn't just kind of throw out. But Draper did grow,
And they had the tenants in the building they owned when they contracted, so that the space would, at least pay for its maintenance.
Yeah, but they did the move, and there weren't a lot of major glitches.
They seem to be folks that would plan it well.
Yeah.
The reason we got a backstage tour before they went operational was that one of the things their director of IT or whatever did on the move in was ask to speak to the existing tenant's director of IT to find out, how do you talk to the phone company when you're in this building? How do you get private lines of internet and the like added to this building? Want to know what you've learned. And for providing that information, he and as many of his friends as wanted to come with him got to go upstairs and get a look-see before they turned it operational.
Yeah.
Which was cool.
Yeah, that's a big.
But having been the speaker to the phone company at a previous startup, I recognize that that's an excellent set of questions to ask.
I haven't been into Boston since February of 2020. Last time I went to Blue Meeting. How much is what kind of things have changed there since that? I understand.
Well, traffic got really light until it stopped being light and started getting bad again. Traffic is almost up to before times.
Yeah, I went into South Boston today at around 9 o'clock this morning.
Oh, the diner?
My friend at breakfast, and I was actually coming in from Wayland, the Wayland transfer station. So I stopped back home to drop off. In Wayland, we've been getting cases of water, as part of their mitigation process.
Oh dear.
PFAs. But so I came in essentially Route 117 down to Waltham and 128 and got on to Commonwealth Avenue because the Mass Pike was bright red.
Uh-huh.
And got back on the Mass Pike around Newton Corner. And was fine going all the way down to Seaport. Got behind a couple of container trucks getting onto the Hall Road. And I was a little bit behind them because they'd go into the Conley terminal.
Yeah.
And where I went to breakfast was right across from the Conley terminal.
So they survived the emergency okay then?
Yeah, well, it's a little restaurant. They own it.
Yeah, I haven't been in, but I know where it is.
Yeah, Colleen owns it. Her husband died a couple of years ago, and their daughter, who had just graduated from Johnson & Wales, is taking it over. And she's well trained, and so she's now doing all the cooking, and Colleen is the owner, and she owns the building. So I think they survived.
That's a good position to be in, but
They also,
Still got expenses.
a lot of condos have been put in up there.
Oh yeah.
So, and, you know, they had to convert more to takeout and stuff like that.
But they're right by the park practically, so that people either going to or from the park from the condos would be
Yeah.
going practically right by them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're on P Street, it's a little one-way street.
Yeah.
Going,
It's a maze of one-way passages, all like over there.
yeah. Well, you know, twisty little turns. Yeah, I know South Boston pretty well, I've been going down there almost every Sunday for 20 years. Yeah, so it's a great little hole in the wall.
Yeah, since you've been mentioning it for close to 20 years, I've been meaning to check it out sometime.
Yeah. Well, the owner is Colleen. Actually, I think her daughter's now officially the owner.
That's good estate management.
That was her graduation present. The owner is Mary Lou, and she does the cooking.
Given where she graduated from, that seems appropriate.
Yeah, and Colleen is there, and then I think they have one or two other people there working, but they're going to be closed from Memorial Day weekend for about 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Lou is going down to South Carolina, I believe. So one of them has to take a trip. They used to go on cruises. So, matter of fact, I was just coming back for a cruise when Paul, the owner, died. But yeah, it's a great little place.
It's just about 7:10. Do you want to do that Fedora talk you were talking about doing?
Sure. Let me change some settings here.
Mm-hmm. Just checking if the brunch place we like down in Quincy is surviving, and yes, it is.
It's pronounced Quincy with a Z.
Hmm?
It's pronounced Quincy, not Quincy.
Uh-huh.
This is Boston. So let me just put up my little slide deck. Okay, I've got the slide deck on. Am I coming through as a single image?
Didn't force me.
You better double check YouTube.
Thank you, Randy.
It just jumped to Jabber because he spoke.
Hello?
Hi, is Cheryl there, please?
I can't talk right now.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. What did I think?
Classy ringtone.
somebody wanted to talk to me, and from New Hampshire, and I didn't know who it was.
Yeah.
Okay, I have, let me just check to see what the live stream is showing. I still have Jabber sitting there. Okay, I'm on the screen. So Fedora 34 came out a couple of weeks ago, and I actually installed it on my laptop as a release candidate. And several things, Fedora 34 came out. First of all, the 5.11 kernel. They've got the new GNOME, essentially GNOME 40. And the change looks good. Pipewire replaces Pulse audio. I noticed that the volume was lower, so I had to strain a little bit to hear people. I think that's a little bit fixed. I can hear everybody fine on this video. And the guy, there's a lot of different spins for Fedora, and I actually put in I had to do put it on several laptops. They have an i3 window manager on there. They have an i3 window manager, which is tiling Windows manager spin. They've got ARM support, and of course the Butter file system that was made standard in Fedora 33, not 34. Let me fix that. So I won't, here we go. I have ButterFS installed on my laptop. I've had no problems, but I don't drive that pretty hard. I still have ext4 on this system. A couple of things on my GNOME shell extensions. I use a lot of shell extensions. For instance, my favorite one is to put all the favorites up on the top bar. And there was one that had to do with horizontal workspaces, and that, of course, I couldn't bring up because one of the major changes in GNOME Shell is the way they present the workspaces. But I do like to put a lot of extensions on here, and there's essentially almost an extension for everything. But whenever you get a new release of Fedora, some of the extensions time out. You have to get updates for them. No big deal. Just go to the extensions page. And again, one of the major changes in GNOME 40 is that the standard place for the favorites is now on the bottom rather than on the left-hand side. And you notice also the workspaces are horizontal. And that works out very nicely for me. Okay, I'm going to show a couple of slides from the GNOME 40 tour. That's what you're going to get when you first install it. Get an overview, make apps your own. You can arrange the app grid to your liking. So there's a little more customization involved. I haven't played around with that at all. Workspaces, I like the way they do the workspaces. I've always used 4 or 5 or 6 workspaces. I keep my things pretty separate. If you have a touchpad, you can use a 3-finger swipe vertical, and this doesn't animate, or left or right to go between them. That's basically it. I'm just playing around with some of the features. So essentially, that is my short Fedora 34. You can ask me questions if you want. Let me just go to settings and unlock you to your screen. There we go. All set. Okay. That's it. I said I had less than 5 minutes on this because I did the presentation for the Natick FOSS group, which I have to keep it under 5 minutes to do a presentation there. Anybody got anything else?
Yeah, it doesn't seem that way.
Yeah. So we just have basically a little panel discussion going. Sometimes we've had speakers cancel. I used to run the Atari group, and one of my speakers didn't show up for a meeting, and his excuse was he got lost at MIT. He got lost in the infinite corridor.
I can
Did that
understand that
twice.
happening.
Yeah. You can get lost or get stuck in a room that doesn't open.
I remember one time when we were meeting in Building 4, I got trapped in one of the freight elevators for like 20 minutes.
I remember that. Yeah, you had you got trapped in an elevator in Rich Braun's building too. I remember.
No, it's just the one time.
Okay. Yeah, MIT, for all the modern engineering school it is, their elevators were back into the 19th century.
It does seem that way.
Actually, I worked in a building that actually had a horse-drawn elevator. They didn't have the horses, but they still had the ropes and everything else, and the elevator was still in the building. And because the building was a stable, was a carriage house. So they had a carriage house. The carriages were on one floor. The horses were on another floor. And the hay was up on yet another floor. And this was all, the elevator was horse-drawn. And we had a real elevator in the building. The only way to get to my office to the men's room was to call the elevator and go through the elevator.
So, real fire hazard.
Yeah, there was emergency exit you could get out, but yeah, it was one of these old buildings, and it was under construction when we were there. They were just building it. Yeah, the guy that owned the building, it was his retirement, and I knew him. He owned the building next door to.
Live streaming is on.
There we go.
Seems that was considerably less than an hour that it was streaming.
Yeah, I don't know what the algorithm is because my lunch meeting that I have a couple of times a month lasts well over an hour. And our last BLU meeting, I think, went the whole meeting without it stopping.
Oh, last month? No, it stopped once.
Yeah.
I think about an hour after we started.
Okay. And the Natick Foss meeting went the whole meeting without it stopping. Because I actually ran it for Natick Moss because Dennis wasn't available.
Any thoughts on a topic for next month?
I'd love to try to get Jonathan or Kurt. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get, Kurt is going to get back some of his speakers. So we'll have to see. Or Jabber, have you checked on our barbecue? You emailed John Chambers. You want me to do that for August?
Yeah, I emailed John a few months ago. I haven't really haven't followed up recently.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead and send him an email.
Okay.
The CC officers when you do that.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, now since most everybody's been vaccinated and the mask mandates are being relaxed and the barbecue's outside anywhere, I don't think there's a problem sitting in his backyard.
Probably useful to send out a poll to the mail list asking people how many people are vaccinated already. Just to get
Well,
some.
when we can do that if we announce it. I think we have a pretty high percentage of people getting vaccinated around here, and I think most of our community is pretty pro-vaccination.
Bill, do you have any thoughts for September? And we normally do a security talk in September.
Yeah, I'm collecting thoughts.
And I know you've been saying the past few years that PGP is kind of deprecated these days.
Yeah. It's unclear if it was ever fit for any purpose other than signing GitHub commits, but there's a reason that your bankers don't want to use it to talk to you. If we can't use it with everybody, it's not going to be ubiquitous.
Yep.
What about security of communication?
What about security of communication?
That would be a topic.
That's more like an encyclopedia.
Okay.
I probably will revisit the list of okay, if not PGP, what then list. I probably will revisit that.
Yeah, well, one of the things that's probably going to affect the internet is Verizon getting rid of Yahoo and AOL.
I think in keeping with the traditions, for September we should keep the trifecta of crypto history, crypto news, and like some kind of hands-on thing about current
Yeah.
markets and crypto and security.
Yeah, we probably won't have, we won't be able to get back into MIT at least until September. And then maybe, maybe keep this format for our regular meetings and use MIT for the install fests if we can do them.
We can't really plan on anything with MIT until we have confirmation from them that they're actually going to have the links available.
Yeah. Yeah, we may not even ever go back to MIT. It's possible too.
I haven't heard back from Microsoft the last couple times I emailed them. I still haven't received slides from February and March.
You were breaking up. I couldn't really understand what you were saying.
I said I asked Christoph a couple times in email about the slides from February and March. And the first couple times he said he sent them out over the weekend. And the last two times in email, he never responded at all.
Okay, ask him again.
Something's generating a lot of background noise.
Well, I want you to know that somebody joined your chat.
It's like there's only 3 of us who have our audio active. I think we're about a year and a half since Linux Journal stopped publication. It goes back in November 2019. If we can find some people who used to publish Linux Journal, it might be nice to one of them do a talk about it. You think there'd be much interest in that as a topic?
Really couldn't understand what you were saying, Chapper.
I was saying it might be interesting to have a talk from some of the people who used to publish Linux Journal. It's been like a year and a half since they ceased publication.
We could do that. Could have Mad Dog possibly talk. He's been online. And I think, see if we can get Bob Frankston back with that AI project that his son was working on.
Yeah, sounds good. Who's that Centos guy you were talking about earlier?
What's the who?
You were talking earlier about somebody who you said gave some a good description of what was going on with Centos.
Yeah, I don't recall his name. I'll have my son-in-law follow up with him and see if we can get him as a speaker. I'll get his name or I'll send him an email. Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to find out. My son-in-law said it was the most understandable explanation that he got, because he was really confused after Christoph's talk. And so we'll have to see on that. Again, that was from the CentOS Doge or whatever that was called.
I was looking at the Rocky Linux site last week, and they had a release candidate, but it wasn't the final release yet.
Yeah, their problem there is acceptance. I mean, they've got the right people, but we'll see what happens to that. it's the Linux landscape is interesting because now you've got Red Hat being owned by IBM. IBM was always actually a big Linux supporter. I think by accident, but they were. It was years ago, I sat in on a talk by a guy from IBM, was talking about Linux being a disruptive technology. And I think that was in the days when IBM had their competitor to Windows.
No, OS2?
Yeah, OS2 or whatever it was.
Oh yeah, good old OS2.
Yeah. I had a project on OS2, so.
Yeah, I remember reading a lot about it, but I never actually got my hands on it to try it.
Yeah, I had a project. It was a banking thing where we had connected a bunch of State Street affiliates together. And it was interesting to sit, in with a room of basically COBOL mainframe programmers.
Yep.
That was interesting to see what they thought.
You think it'd be an interesting talk on like from Dan Stoltz about the Linux integration being done within Windows 10?
And Dan is always a good speaker.
I think I saw something on our mailing list about some big improvements over the last time we heard about it, which I guess was a few years ago. I think I remember something about having Payload built into it, and a lot of Linux GUI applications now run native under the Windows kernel.
Oh, I've got a question. I don't know if anybody here can answer. Some products are currently packaged in Snap, and I haven't had the opportunity to use any Snap archives or Snap products or Snapped products. Anybody have any experience using Snap? Like,
Yeah, I've used a couple of things that were only available as Snap.
mhm.
You have to install the Snap daemon first.
Yes. Yeah, because in Snap, you're operating actually out of a container.
Yeah.
I think you end up using more memory.
Yeah.
Yes, because it's not sharing copies of libraries between processes, it will use more memory.
Yeah, it's good for developers in that they can package it with the libraries that they need, so they're not going to get installed in some phantom library somewhere. Because that, they used to cause problems with RPM and stuff like that. But it was an Ubuntu project that didn't get all that far. We had a guy that was supposed to know Snap. We had him as a speaker. And he never showed up.
I used Snap a little bit on Ubuntu, but now that I'm on Fedora Silverblue, I use almost exclusively Flatpak. And of Snap, Flatpak, and AppArmor, I prefer Flatpak.
You mean App Image?
Yes, I'm sorry, AppImage, yes.
Yeah, for Photox, we've been preferring App Image.
I think they're all a little bit rough around the edges as far as management goes, but it seems like Fedora is behind Flatpak at the moment.
All right, who's playing Star Trek in our town?
Probably somebody's ringtone.
Deep Space Nine on Netflix.
Always ends up with a reference to Star Trek.
Yep.
Why not? Of course, I go back to the days where we used to grab satellite image from Babylon 5 as it was coming across.
It's kind of sad how they really messed that stuff up.
Excuse me?
It's pretty sad how they messed all that stuff up.
Yeah.
They had all these great 3D models I used for in Babylon 5, and then for some reason they ended up throwing away all the images from that. So when they wanted to remaster for Blu-ray, they didn't have the tools they needed to do it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Babylon 5 was a pretty decent series. I've got it on DVD. And I think the seasons, it was supposed to originally go for 5 seasons. And then they thought they were going to cut it short to 4. And so they figured out an ending for 4. And then they got the 5th season. And I didn't like the 5th season as much as the rest of it.
I know they chopped out some huge the story arcs out of it, turned them into TV movies. Even the story arc they spun off into the series, but then I got canceled after one season.
Yeah, you get some backstory. I know that the quite a number of the actors on Babylon 5 have since passed away.
Yeah.
But the original captain, I forget his name, but he actually had
Jeffrey Sinclair.
Yeah, the guy who played Jeffrey Sinclair. He had I don't know if he wasn't bipolar. He was schizophrenic, and they really couldn't handle him for the 2nd season because he couldn't stay well enough to do it. I mean, he was there as Ambassador Sinclair, but not as a full-time.
No, they made it work.
And of course, Garibaldi passed away. And so did Zach. And of course,
and Franklin.
the Narn ambassador, he passed away shortly after the show. Andreas Katsoulis, that's the actor's name.
All the recent action has been in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Has everyone seen Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Repeat, please.
So I've seen the little miniseries, Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Nope.
Have you seen any of the Marvel movies?
Nope.
Well, I thought they were awesome. I'd highly recommend them if you have any interest in that sort of thing. I'd ask if you ever read the comic books that are based on them. If you hadn't seen the movies, you might not know which comic books they're based on.
I'm more of a old war movie type.
I used to read all these comic books when I was a kid. If you remember back in the 90s, they had those Spider-Man movies and Fantastic Four movies. They were basically movie adaptations of comic books. And all these new movies, they were basically, they weren't movie adaptations of comics. They were actually live-action comics in the way that those older movies weren't. They were actually faithful to the comics in a way that the older movies couldn't be. And they were like light years ahead of those older movies. Of course, if you weren't a fan of those comic books, then maybe you wouldn't really care about that.
They actually did a pretty good job with some of those old movies without computers and computer graphics and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the special effects. I'm talking about the writing of it, or the actual the characters in them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they actually went in depth with the characterization. The comics in the way that the older movies weren't. And basically, the older movies were basically written by fans who who read the comics when they're kids, and the new movies were written by the people who wrote the comics originally. And the difference.
Yeah, I mean, I read a lot of comic books when I was a kid, but I was more into Tarzan and Sergeant Rock of the First Division or something like that. But one of my favorite movies is a movie called We Dive at Dawn. And I have it on DVD. We Dive at Dawn. It's a British movie that was made around 1942. And you could barely understand the speech because it's all British Cockney and stuff like that.
Hey, Jerry, you said that was We Die at Dawn?
We dive at
Oh,
dawn. I can show it to you. Hold on a sec. It's in my library somewhere, but I can't find it. It stars John Mills, and he's one of the few actors in the movie that you can actually understand. He actually speaks the King's English, but the rest of them, are
Oh, they really think
very thick accents. From it's almost like going into South Boston, I guess.
I was going to say comparable to like Boston or New Orleans or something.
Yeah. Well, my friend came in a couple of weeks ago. My friend came in with his step grandson, and we went to the galley. And after we had breakfast, he made a comment about Boston accents because Colleen certainly has a Boston accent. Very legitimate, although she lives in Quincy. Yes, Randy with a Z. And New Orleans has an interesting accent also. New Orleans doesn't really have a Southern accent. It's more of a almost New York.
I understand the natives in New Orleans try to pronounce it as one syllable, like New Orleans.
I was trained in New Orleans. The ones that pronounce it New Orleans are Southerners, and they are not native New Orleanians. It's an interesting city. You just have to be careful of flooding.
It's supposed to get even worse as the years go on.
Yep.
Imagine there must have a big mosquito problem down there.
No,
Could be.
Alaska has a big mosquito problem. New Orleans has a major mosquito problem.
Yep. When I was down in New Orleans, I never really got bothered by mosquitoes. course, we're talking 50 years ago.
Yeah, 50 years ago, the carbon dioxide concentration was probably more like 350 parts per million. It's up to like 440 parts per million now.
Yeah.
That's one hell of a mess to clean up.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we used to do down there, we could take a glass of water and a glass of tap water. We'd cover it up and sit it on a counter for about a day, and you'd see about a quarter inch of silt on the bottom. Because New Orleans gets its water directly out of the Mississippi.
Yeah, I did the math for it about a month ago. If we wanted to get the concentration back down to 350 parts per million, we basically have to remove about 500 billion tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and back in the ground. And that's a huge task.
Yeah. I think probably in a few decades they're going to have to start doing that.
That's just based on the figures I was able to look up. And that's not actually solving the problem completely. That's just taking it from where we were in, I think it was April of 2019, and getting it down to 350. That doesn't account for all the carbon dioxide we put in the atmosphere since then, or what we're continuing to put in. So the actual amount we have to take out is even more than that. We also have to take out everything we're currently putting in addition to that 500 billion. Of course, the first step is develop a technology that can do it in a cost-effective fashion. So right now, we probably could do it, but it would be prohibitively expensive.
Compared to what? Moving New Orleans 20 miles inland?
I don't think moving New Orleans is going to affect the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
No, but the concentration of the atmosphere may affect whether New Orleans needs to move. The cost of doing nothing.
Completely moving New Orleans to some other part of the world or some other part of the country will be triply cheap compared to the cost of pulling all the carbon dioxide out, pulling that much carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere with the technology we currently have available. I mean, it's we don't have the tool. We have, I think, maybe half a dozen proof of concept ways of doing it in the lab that are not cost effective yet. They're just like like I said, they're proof of concept at this point. We need to make them work on a scale. And
right. We need about twice as many proofs of concept and hope 3 of them work.
Well, it's not enough for them to work. They have to work. They have to be cost effective as well. Otherwise, we'll never be able to pay for them.
Most things get cost effective after you make them work, not before.
Well, yeah, obviously. Oh, the ones that I've read about, the half dozen of them that I've read about, as far as I can tell, they do work, but they're very expensive. I mean, they work in a lab, and and they need to be well, they need to be made cheaper so they can be scaled up.
Well, you can make a good, solid state battery in the lab, but then put it into mass production. That's another step altogether.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah, I think we're pretty much run out of things to talk about here, so might as well call it a night at this point. So, Jerry, can you send
Okay.
Can you send your slides so I can post them?
Can I what?
Can you send me your slides on the Fedora thing?
I already did.
Oh, you already? Okay.
I sent you a link to the slides.
Okay, so I'll post those on the website.
Yeah.
Okay, well, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Cheers.